variant, many were of the view that we might be on our way out of the pandemic. Dr. Forbes says, however, variants are continuing to pop up.
Variants are already emerging. For example, there's the XE variant now that's more contagious than even BA2. And so we know that there are places in the world where COVID is increasing. In that scenario, you could also have variants that vaccines and the therapeutics don't work as well against in terms of preventing infections.
She, along with other health officials, however, are hoping that newer variants will continue to be not as severe.
That may change things as it relates to our outlook in making COVID less of a new virus where people who don't have immunity, and there's few persons with immunity, a large number of persons will die. So we're hopeful about that, but we'll have to watch.
Omicron BA.2 is more than 30% more infectious than the strain that plagued the Bahamas over the Christmas holiday and accounts for more than half of current new cases in the United States. Janelle Longley, Eyewitness News.
Well, there you have it. As health officials are eyeing this new subvariant, we have a doctor in studio with us tonight who is promoting the idea of alternative treatments to the coronavirus. With the onset of the pandemic, there were calls by many for a vaccine to help stop the spread of this deadly virus. Eventually, a number of vaccines were developed and to date are still being distributed. But there are also anti-vaxxers who oppose these vaccines. Some will promote the idea of seeking alternative measures to fight the virus. Well, please welcome Dr. Peter McCullough. He is live with us in studio this evening. Good evening to you, Dr. McCullough, and thank you for being here. I know that you are here for a couple of reasons. You're going to participate in a town meeting tomorrow evening, I think it is, to give more information and to answer questions. But tonight we're going to get started with this. So we are hearing of the more transmissible strain of the Omicron variant that is causing our government and others around the world to stress the need to get vaccinated. You, though, have maintained another position. Why not any one of the vaccines as they appear the easiest solution?
Well, whether someone's been vaccinated or not, those with acute symptoms that are severe or those at high risk for hospitalization need treatment. Now, in the December 10th CDC communication on the Omicron outbreak in the United States, 79% of cases were fully vaccinated. And it was true that those vaccinated individuals sick with Omicron, they did need early treatment if they were at high risk for hospitalization and death. So now in the United States, there's a standard of care, not an alternative, a standard of care of treatment for those who need it, both vaccinated and unvaccinated.
Okay, well, let's talk about that standard of care because I'm not sure. I know the protocol in the Bahamas simply, of course. There are doctors who provide some form of alternative treatment, but certainly, of course, the push is to become vaccinated. You, though, maintain that an early treatment to save lives is the best route to take. This isn't something that traditional medical practitioners have supported. When you say early treatment, standard of treatment, what are you talking about and what is being done in the U.S.?
Yeah, what I'm talking about since the third quarter of 2020, the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons fully supported and actually had a home treatment guide for treatment of high-risk patients with COVID-19, largely seniors. We've had 3 sets of U.S. Senate testimony on this. There are now dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of randomized trials through the range of drugs that we use, both emergency use authorized drugs and then drugs that are appropriately prescribed off the original advertising label. They're typically drugs in 3 categories: drugs to reduce viral replication, those to handle inflammation or cytokine storm, and those to manage the blood clotting abnormalities, which ultimately are in the fatal sequence of patients who are at high risk.
Obviously, you'll be discussing and getting more in depth at tomorrow's town meeting. Okay, well, let's just talk about efficacy about the vaccines. Each, in fact, of the top 3 vaccine makers have been touting efficacy on their brand. You say otherwise, though?
There's 25,000 papers published in the peer-reviewed system on vaccines, safety and efficacy. We always handle safety before we discuss efficacy, and we don't allow the vaccine manufacturers to tell the story. No, that's done through the peer-reviewed literature. So now we're actually up to the 4th vaccination, actually the 4th injection. And
now that right there is puzzling for me. It's okay, you get the double dose, yes, that's standard. then now the booster, and you're saying now there's a fourth level of boosters?
Yeah, and so in a paper in New England Journal of Medicine this week by Bar On from Israel, they reported the results of those who had received the fourth injection of Israeli citizens. And in the second week after the fourth injection, they had 14,000 cases of COVID-19. After the third week after the fourth injection, they had 9,000 more. So here you just had a few here in the Bahamas. You can imagine in countries where there's more and more vaccination, there's more and more cases.
But Dr. McCullough, what's the answer? What is it that you are saying then? Because the thing is, obviously, steps must be taken. We hear of this new subvariant. I mean, that's concerning.
The way to think about it is, we are not going to get to zero cases. As the virus has mutated, it's become progressively a milder syndrome. Omicron, the mildest of all the syndromes. Many papers published on Omicron, there are 0 hospitalizations and deaths. It is indistinguishable from the common cold. So in my view, we're not going to get to 0 cases. Everyone will see some Omicron cases. Because Omicron BA1 had so many mutations, as some of the mutations are subtracted, we actually have the opportunity for subvariants, i.e. BA2, now XE, XF, and XD. Those are still within the Omicron family. Once someone has Omicron, they have immunity to that strain of the virus and back immunity against Delta, which was far more severe.
I know also there's talk about, and here in the Bahamas, I think we have been awaiting vaccines for children. I think that's still kind of sort of a wait and see. But talk about that. You're shaking your head already. Talk about your opposition to children and the vaccine.
You know, we don't have any randomized trials in children demonstrating reductions in anything meaningful, meaning hospitalization and death. So the age 12 to 17 age group that was published by Frank and colleagues in New England Journal of Medicine, and then age 5 to 11 by the second group studying this, concluded that while they could reduce the nasal stuffiness and the common cold syndrome, there was no hospitalizations and deaths to be prevented. And so we know that in the published studies, if children are inadvertently vaccinated and they've already had COVID, they actually have increased risk of side effects with the vaccines. Multiple studies show this. So in the UK, they've estimated that 85% of children have already had COVID because it's hard to tell because it's such a mild syndrome. In the United States in the fall, the estimates at the FDA meeting were 45%. We think it's probably now 85% in the United States. So offering a vaccine to children that has no opportunity to benefit them only has an opportunity to harm.
What do you want parents to know and those who will be attending tomorrow evening's town meeting?
You know, parents, children, individuals of all ages are welcome to come out to the Church of God on Joe Farrington Road, 7 o'clock. I will be giving a public seminar, very similar to the scientific slides that I've shown in multiple seminars across the United States and in scientific meetings. It will be basically the state of the art in the published, and every slide will be cited on safety. We'll consider safety of the vaccines first, then efficacy, and then we'll move to the important pivot to early treatment, which everyone needs, if they're vaccinated or not, if they develop severe COVID. We should not lose another individual with COVID, provided they're treated early and early at home.
Well, the finding about that early treatment certainly is worth the price of entry. Certainly, by the way, it's free. It's no price of entry.
Right.
But yeah, certainly thank you very much for stopping by and sharing some initial thoughts. And once again, Dr. McCullough will be at a town meeting tomorrow evening at the Church of God Auditorium, really getting more in depth with his information on the COVID-19, the vaccines, safety, efficacy, and a whole lot more. And so thank you very much for stopping by this evening. When we come back, analysis on the